You know, it's literally a week ago, we had zero money, and here we were making money. So I think that's probably, you know, when I realised that I was in business, when we were paying some of those big bills, but also making money.
That's Dr. Ben Carvosso talking about how it actually felt to be in business. And for our regular listeners, you know that this is one of my favourite questions. When did it feel real? When did you feel like you were really in business? Hello, I'm your host, Ingrid Thompson, and welcome to So You Want to Start a Business. Today, I'm talking with Dr. Ben, who is a chiropractor, a coach, and a serial entrepreneur. He was a terrific guest, and I invite you to settle in for an in-depth discussion about business as Dr. Ben sees it. And he likes to tell things like it is. He's got some specific guidance for those of our audience who are in health professions. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, and here we are today with Dr. Ben Carvosso. So Ben, hello.
Hey Ingrid, so good to catch up with you today.
Thanks so much for being here. So,
My pleasure.
Tell us, what business are you in? What is your business?
Wow.
Yeah.
I've worn a few hats over the years. Mm-hmm. So my original training is as a chiropractor. So for about 14 years, once I graduated, I was just doing chiropractic. Then I spent a stint of about 7 years owning a radiology company and transitioned out of chiropractic during that time. About 3 or 4 years ago, sold the radiology company, started back into chiropractic, but at the same time started into mindset coaching for entrepreneurs and business people. So at the moment, I own a chiropractic centre and I coach.
Okay, so you've actually started a number of businesses, and that's over a period, it sounds like about 10 years, more than that.
So I know I sound young, and you've seen the pictures. I look young, right? But I've been graduated now for 26 years.
Wow. So your first business was 26 years ago?
My first business when I was 14, I started a dog walking business. I'd walk people's dogs for $5 for 30 minutes, which back, 30 or so years ago, that's $10 an hour. That wasn't too bad for a 14-year-old. But that was my first business venture. But yes, at the moment I graduated, in fact, about 6 weeks before I graduated, just quietly, don't tell the registration board, I bought my first business and started practice.
Wow. So you've been in business for a long time.
Long time. Long time.
So choose any one of those businesses, or you can talk about them all together, is why start a business?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, with my personality, I like to be in control, and one of my core values is creation. It's a driver behind everything that I do. Suck at maintaining, but great at creation. And I think that underlying value drove me to own my own businesses. If I was to work with someone else, I probably feel that some of my creative expression wouldn't be there. And I had a bit of a metamorphosis, I think. In fact, last year we caught up my 25-year chiropractic reunion, and I got the Metamorphosis Award. From transitioning from this kind of shy guy when I first started in first year to this more extroverted fellow by the time we finished fifth year. And I think during those 5 years I also had this metamorphosis of my personality, did a lot of training in those 5 years as well as studying chiropractic. And I think by the time I graduated, I was ready to run my own business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. So you wanted, it sounds like to me that you were looking for this creative outlet. Was there anything else you wanted from the business from day one that you were looking for by having a business?
I think creation was the main driver, but I've got to say coming right up behind that is I wanted to make money. Yeah.
Yep.
I wanted to make lots of it. I love my career, and I love what I get to do, and I'm so blessed every day that I get to pursue my my passion of helping people make change. In fact, a good mate of mine, he used to call me and he'd say, "What are you up to?" And I go, "Mate, I'm saving lives."
Oh, isn't that lovely?
And I really believe that the work I do transforms and saves lives.
Isn't
but having said
wonderful?
all that, I want to make money.
Yeah.
That's what I'm in business for.
Yeah, I often, when people say, oh, they don't want to charge this much, and I think, well, you can't, and I say to people, you can't help anyone if you're sleeping in the car, or sleeping under the bridge. If you're not together, if you haven't got it together financially, you're really not in a position to really save lives and make a difference. It makes it so much more difficult, doesn't it?
Oh, look, absolutely. I was interviewed on radio probably about a year ago, and there was two other people on the panel, and both of them hadn't been in business, but one was a marketer, sold large marketing packages to, big enterprise. And I made that comment about, if you're not in business making money, you are not happy. And he said, oh, hang on a second. No, that's not right. It's all about pursuing your why, what's really important. If you've listened to Simon Sinek, it's all about why. And I said, why is important? Pursuing your passion and your purpose is important. But if you're in business and you're not making money, you're not happy.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're not in business either.
Well, you're not in business. Yeah, I love that. You've got to make money in business.
Definition of business, make money.
Correct. Yeah.
So one of my favourite questions is this next one. And it's this whole thing about, when do you actually realise you're in business? So you sign the papers to the new business at the chiropractic, you set up the radiography. That's the nuts and bolts and technique. But when does it feel like you're in business?
That's a good question. I would say that I think being in control of the money probably created that feeling at some level. Being responsible for paying the bills, having your name on a lease, having your name on a bank loan. When I first bought my first chiropractic centre, I had just turned 23 and took out a fairly sizable bank loan, over $150,000, which way back then for a 23-year-old was decent, at 17% interest. For the oldies on the call can remember when interest rates were 17%.
Yep.
There's a fairly decent repayment a month. That certainly brings you into the world of business.
Yeah.
But I also think the other side, not just paying bills, but collecting the money. Seeing that come into your bank account. I'm old enough to remember the days when people didn't really use credit cards, where we had checks and cash. We would finish the day and you had to spend some time counting the cash and taking home a wad of cash.
How nice is that feeling?
Well, I've still got this picture in my mind. It was in the first week. My wife and I, we went down, we bought this practice, we started, and, we'd been students at zero money, just, peanut butter and toast. And I remember coming home and we had a futon, because we still didn't have any money. We were sleeping on the floor on a futon, and we were bouncing up and down on the futon, throwing the money in the air. We just couldn't believe that there was this cash. Literally a week ago we had zero money, and here we were making money. So I think that's probably, when I realised that I was in business, when we were paying some of those big bills, but also making money.
Rolling around in that cash. I think there's a generation that are just missing out on that.
Yes, absolutely.
All this electronic money doesn't give you that same sense, does it?
It doesn't, and I think at some level it's not necessarily healthy. There is something about seeing the money, and there are a lot of businesses that see money come automatically into their account and automatically comes out, and they're not tracking it. They don't have that awareness that you do have when you can actually see it and feel it and touch it. Yeah.
And smell it.
And smell it.
Well, because in those days money actually had a smell as well. I think the new money doesn't actually have a smell, does it? Well, ours doesn't.
I don't think
those
it does.
Plastic ones don't. Okay, so a funding question, and you've already been quite honest about a big loan. So you borrowed some money. That would have been pretty tricky at 23 to go to the bank and say, can I have $150,000? Was there, what's the thinking behind, a chiropractic obviously needs, you've got equipment and things, so that is a big, how did you go to the bank and ask for that sort of money?
Well, chiropractors back then, and probably still today, we were seen as professionals, and we were seen as a guaranteed thing. You just, it was pretty safe to back a chiropractor. So the banks saw you as a professional, and would lend money. It really, I mean, it's a long time ago, but in my memory, it was very, very easy.
Yeah.
And based on that, when I borrowed money from my radiology practice, I had a history, obviously, with the banks for 14 or so years before I started radiology. But I wasn't a radiologist. I'd never owned a radiology clinic, and there were huge outlays to start a radiology practice, massive. And at the time when we started the radiology practice, we'd never taken an X-ray. So we had over $500,000 worth of equipment. We'd signed leases. We'd employed staff, and we still hadn't taken an X-ray. And then we take the X-ray and we wait 3 days to see if Medicare is going to pay us. Now that money, I remember sending a paper napkin into my financier to borrow that money. And she has still got the napkin today. Mate and I sat down and we put a business plan together on a paper napkin, which maybe you can't do today, but we sent that napkin in and said, this is what we'd like to do, and she lent me the money.
Based on that, wow.
Well, there's a history.
Yeah.
And again, in practitioners, if they put their mind to it, they can make good money and they can get a great history.
That's a very powerful statement, isn't it? That a skilled practitioner can have a good history and they can really have a very substantial business. So you'd... Go on.
Sorry, I think too, one of the things, it's a belief I have, and I'm not sure that it's a truth, I spend money to make money.
Yeah.
People often say, look, once the money starts to come in, then I'll spend some money to make some money. You've got to give first. You've got to give of time, energy, resources, money. You've got to give of sanity. You've got to give of all that first. And then you'll get a return on investment in money, in future benefit, in lifestyle, in personal development. That will all come, and hopefully will come in way greater ratio than what you gave. But you first must give.
Yeah. It's a fundamental law, really, isn't it? So if we think about your actual viability, that napkin, obviously you've done the maths, but there must have been a kind of a calculator sitting behind it. Did you, with the radiology particularly, if we look at that, how did you know that there was a market for what you were offering? 'Cause that's a big commitment. Where did you get that market intelligence from to know that there would be enough people that would want what you were offering in order for you to make that kind of investment?
Wish I could come up with some very intelligent, researched answer. But the answer...
How about you just tell us the truth?
it was gut feel.
Yep.
It was the vibe. I know there's people possibly listening to this, business coaches that are saying you've got to have a business plan and you've got to do the SWOT analysis. Sorry, I didn't. It was gut feel. I mean, I'd been in the area for some time. I'm a practitioner in the area. I've used radiology services in the area. I'd had patients obviously experience problems with the existing radiology services.
So these are the things that added up to your gut feel.
Correct.
You had been a chiropractor who needs X-rays in order to see the patients. There were difficulties in that process. And that would have been manifesting over a period of time. You physically knew the area. So, it was actually quite calculated, even though it felt like it was a gut feel. In reality, it was quite calculated, Ben, wasn't it?
It was. And also, thank you. That was a great question you asked me. Much of radiology, and there's many services out this way, are run by big business. They're big corporates. They're the big, the big ships that just take forever to turn. As a small player, and if you're a small player and entrepreneurial, you can twist and turn and shift just in a day. You can make a decision and a pricing change or a marketing change. And I think that's one of the things that I knew, that if I brought my entrepreneurial skills to radiology, I could make a success of it, because radiology at the time wasn't coming from this entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, that's terrific.
Yep.
Yep. So customers and or you would call yours clients, I guess, when they come to chiropractic and radiography, and your coaching clients you would certainly call clients. So where do they come from? How do you know who they are? Do you have an avatar? Do you how do you find customers? Where are they?
Great. Yes, I do have an avatar, particularly for my coaching, because my niche in coaching is people that are in midlife. Generally, probably 70% of the time, they're in business or entrepreneurial. I'm either seeing the business owner, the entrepreneur, or their partner, sometimes even their children. But, there's a kind of a clear niche, so I have a very clear avatar around that. Chiropractic practice, it's very broad. It's probably more the demographic sort of location, geographic for chiropractic, and certainly for radiology, it was across the board. What was the question again?
So then, how do they
find me?
Them? Yeah.
So certainly in chiropractic practice and in coaching, a great deal of it comes through referral. People that have had a success refer. A lot of my coaching comes from speaking gigs. So I do a lot of speaking engagements for different organisations, community groups, and I'll often go into a business and speak to the business across the board. But often a client will, that's within that group, will then come and tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, would you be happy to give me one-on-one coaching?" So I get a lot from speaking engagements.
Yeah, it was interesting what you said about the practice being a kind of demographic, geographic, because somebody needs to be near you, don't they? So there is a physicality around that in terms of the profile of your ideal customer or client.
Yeah. And I think there's chiropractic is everywhere, and so people are looking for some level of convenience in. Yeah. Most people see their local GP or their local dentist. At some level. Locality is important.
Thanks. So pricing strategies, how, you can pay as a piece of string for chiropractic, radiography, coaching. What's your thinking about a pricing strategy? How do you approach that?
There were three things that I learned, and I didn't learn these until I had the radiology practice. There are three components that you can have in business: quality, service, and price. You can compete on those three things. Many of your listeners may have heard this concept before, but if we look at LD, what does LD compete on? They compete on price, and they would say quality, but zero service. BMW, they would say they compete on probably quality and service, but certainly not price. So you pay a premium, but you'll get quality and service. In my radiology practice, I attempted to compete on all three. So we were a bulk billing radiology, so we competed on price. We used a whole range of strategies that meant we delivered incredible services, not just to the patient, but to the referring GP and allied health. And we put the best quality gear in. So in the beginning, that was a bit of a challenge for us to compete on price and those other two components. So the learning experience for me was to not attempt to do all three. So in my chiropractic centre, so my pricing strategy now in chiropractic and certainly in my coaching is to deliver incredible service, the best possible quality, but not to compete on price. So I am probably the most expensive chiropractor, certainly in Victoria.
Good for you.
Well, I'm in practice 26 years.
Absolutely.
I delivered amazing quality. We are so structured within our practice, nothing gets missed. The quality is incredible. The service we provide is amazing. No one ever waits. No one waits. You walk into our practice, we have a door slam time. That means when you slam your door to come in and you slam your door to go out, it is kept to a very minimum number. So incredible service, incredible quality, but because of that, there's a price to be paid.
Yep. And you can ask for that price because of the value that you're providing through
I believe
quality
so.
and service.
And price too, I think, comes back a lot, particularly when you're an individual practitioner working in your practice, to self-worth.
And then the ability to ask for that price.
Correct. Yeah. And practitioners need to value themselves way more. That you have a life in your hands. You have someone's health in your hands. And for an hour, we're charging $70, $90 for an hour to deliver care to a patient. It's too cheap. We have people out there earning $150 an hour, and they're leaning on a shovel. Practitioners need to value themselves a lot more.
Well, I know there's quite a lot of health practitioners listen to this podcast, so I hope they rewind and re-listen to that. Thanks very much for that, Ben, for that encouraging words for all of us that from time to time might give things away for free or might not charge quite what we think we should. So, no, that's terrific. Let's talk a little bit about exit strategies. So you've obviously exited businesses from time to time. What's your approach to the need for an exit strategy and the thinking of an exit strategy when it comes to, and you work with businesses, so, what's that approach to exit strategies for you, please?
Don't have one. I never have. So I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or not, but the businesses that I've moved into, I've loved, and I love the creation of it. I'm passionate about it. It connects with my higher values. Any business that I've gone into, I haven't gone into it with the thought of ever leaving it. It's been a change of circumstance or an opportunity that's come up to move on to something else that's resulted in me moving on rather than having had it planned.
And that's a terrific approach that works for you. It's a question without any preconceived answers.
Yeah.
So, and it goes with your, putting it on, doing the calculations on a napkin. It's your approach to business. It's that creative entrepreneurial. So, a couple of reflective questions about. This one is, what do you really wish you'd done differently at the beginning? So when I'm talking usually to someone who's had maybe one business, there is something that they wish they'd done differently at the beginning. So is there something as you've been journeying through that you've been able to do differently in your next business that you learnt from the way you started out a previous business?
I'm not sure that there's a doing thing. But there is a mindset thing that I would do different, and that is probably to take even more risk. To, when your coach says to you, this is a great strategy, and this will work. Trust me, just do it. It'll work. I wish I'd trusted them more and done it instead of mucking around for a couple of years and then finally doing the thing. Putting your price up, reducing treatment times, changing your hours, being more disciplined around when clients can and can't see you. Those kind of changes. I mucked around for ages before I implemented some of those strategies because there's some risk. If you change your hours or reduce the amount of days that you're available, people are going to get annoyed and not come back. Are they, and so for years, sometimes, I worked harder than maybe I needed to for less reward.
That's very insightful.
Probably more risk.
Yeah, a bit more risk. Because my next question is a little bit different, but I think you've already answered this one, is what do you wish you'd known from the start? So maybe that's that thing, is that you'd wish you'd known about the advantages of taking the risks. Yeah.
Trust your coach. Trust the person, the mentor that you're using to, on your journey. And if your listeners don't have a mentor, then, look, maybe this is maybe extreme for me to say, but I would get out of business.
Or get a mentor.
Or get a mentor.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yes, true. That is always another option.
that is the option.
So, and seriously, I had a mentor that I started with way back when I was at university. So, people might go, wow, he got out at 23 and bought a business and borrowed that money. And I had a coach in the last few years when I was at university. And so I stepped out into practice with a coach behind me.
Yeah.
And I've had a coach for the last 27 years.
Yeah.
28 years.
Everybody that is incredibly successful has people helping them. Roger Federer did not just win Wimbledon again on his own.
Yeah. And he had a mentor or a coach, not a frientor. I often talk about this. We have frientors in our life. When times have sucked for Roger Federer and he just didn't win, he'd call his frientor and he'd go, I bloody lost that game, and his friend would go, yeah, that sucks, Rog. Why don't you pop over? We'll have a couple of beers and, watch a bit of telly. And he'd go, yeah. We need those people in our life, the frientors, the moaning buddy. Mm-hmm. But we also need mentors that say, yeah, I reckon you could have done better. And how could you have done better? How could you have taken more responsibility with making sure that outcome worked out, that you were successful in that thing? What role did you play in that not working out? Here's maybe a tip. I'm happy to champion you, give you some accountability on it. I wonder how you could do better next time. That's what we need in our life. We need mentors, particularly if you're in business, because we're always, if you're growing, you're going to get stuck. Everybody gets stuck. The difference between someone who's successful that gets stuck and someone unsuccessful is successful people recognize they're stuck, seek mentorship on their stuck state, change their character, start taking action, move forward and get unstuck. Unsuccessful people get stuck and have no awareness of being stuck and just continue to blame the world and be miserable.
Yeah.
If you're growing in your business, in your relationships, in your health, you're going to get stuck. But you get stuck with a mentor that assists you in getting out of stuck and continuing to move forward.
That's such, we had a local restaurant that had been there for quite some time and they were stuck and all they did was moan about all the other businesses that had opened up nearby, all the competition, clearly didn't have anybody giving them any kind of direction or helping them to see a direction, and they closed. And we miss it because it was a restaurant we went to quite often, but they were unwilling to see what could still be potential. They just decided they'd given up, I think. And I think once people get stuck, they get to a point where they just give up, don't they? Or they get help.
Roger Federer gets stuck. All the greats get stuck. But the greats get unstuck. And they get unstuck through mentorship, change in character, and change in behaviour.
Yeah. That's such words of wisdom there. So I was going to ask you about someone who's been of great assistance to you, who gives you feedback. You've already talked about having a coach. Is there anybody else who who gives you that mentorship, that coaching, who gives you great feedback? Where do you get that from, Ben, yourself?
Right now in my life, there are in the last year or so, there's probably been 2 or 3 people. First of all, not just in the last year or 2, but forever, one of my greatest coaches has been my wife. Mm-hmm. Amazing. The level of accountability that she gives me, and that she constantly champions me to raise my standards. I would not be here without her support and championship. So first of all. Secondly, I would say I have a great mate, Ryan, who I catch up with every week on a Wednesday morning. He lives a couple of hours away. We both head out for a walk in our own towns. We put our headphones on and we talk for about an hour and a half every Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. And he's a friend, probably one of my best friends, but also a mentor. So we get on the call and we basically say, so where you're at, what's going on for you this week? And if any of us bring something that starts to become a bit of a moan, the other person will step up and move into coaching, mentoring and help the person work through it. So he certainly helps me with mentorship, accountability, and also champions me. Actually, they're probably the two top ones at the moment.
So everybody needs someone like Ryan in their life, don't they?
We do.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if someone came to you and said they're thinking about starting a business, what would you say to them?
I would say, do you really want to? Do you really, really want to start a business? Or has someone told you that you should? Have you should on yourself? A lot of people start businesses because they've been should on by their partner, by a work colleague, by a friend. You know, the friend says, man, you're so good at that. Stop working for that, that guy. You should start your own business. And then their mind goes, yeah, I should start my own business. But really deep down, it's not what they want. So I'd get them just to ask that question. Do you really, really want it? Is it in alignment with who you are, your deeper purpose? Are your values in alignment with starting a business? Do you have the standards that would support starting a business? Do you have the character that can support starting and then running a business? Starting a business is one thing, but you've got to keep running it. Everyone knows the stats, and I'm sure you've spoken to your clients about, I can't remember exactly the stats, but something like, 80% of businesses fail within the first year. Whatever's less, those 20% that have left, 80% of those will fail in the next 3 years. If you can get to 10 years in business, you're doing ridiculously well. You are definitely beating the odds. And there can be a lot of pain with running a business, and you've got to be up for that pain. You've got to be adult. That's one of the character traits that you must have if you're going to start a business. That is, you're willing to do the things that don't feel good but are going to be good for you. That's what adults do. Versus a child does things that feel good and are good for them, or feel good and are not good for them. In a business, you've got to behave like an adult. You've got to do stuff that really doesn't feel good, but it is going to be good for you. So that's probably the advice I give. I know that doesn't sound very positive, but really, decide that you really want to be in business.
Ben, you and I are on the same song sheet here. It's not a dream. If you want to have a hobby or an interest, have a hobby or an interest or a side hustle and do something that's, I'm with you. If you want to have a serious business, it takes commitment and resilience and persistence and all of those things. As you said, it's an adult behaviour. Yeah. So looking at characteristics, what are your top three and, your top three characteristics that have made you successful? So how do you describe yourself as a successful business? What are those three characteristics?
It's a good question. I think one of my deep values of creation, I think that's always come through, that creative mindset. How could I do this better?
Yep.
How could I change this? Not just change for change's sake, but change to make it better. I think that's a key characteristic that I bring. Probably three other characteristics that I pretty much always have on my dashboard. So one of the things that I coach on is that it's not what you do, but it's who you be that's important. And who you be when you're at work versus who you be when you're intimate with your partner versus who you be with when you're kids versus who you be, when you're hanging out at the movies. They're different settings. And so the setting that I tend to move to, my business setting, involves these three characteristics. One is that I am solid. Solid is attractive. People are attractive to people that are solid. They're predictable. They're reliable. they're consistent. So I always attempt to be solid in business. Secondly, energized. Energy is attractive as well, and you need energy if you're going to be in business. Particularly if you're in healthcare, if you're not energized, if you're not fit, if you don't look good, if you don't care for yourself, I think it's a mistake. In business, particularly in healthcare, you need to be energized, and I'm always turning that dial on. And then lastly, bold. We need to become more bold. And I know there's a lot of practitioners out there that are in healthcare because they really do want to save the world, but they're not bold enough. You need to be bold with your recommendations. You need to be bold with your pricing. You need to be bold with your marketing. If you are going to get out there and save lives, we need to be more bold. So they're the three characteristics, or four if you like. Creativity, I'm solid, I'm energized, and bold.
Fantastic. And I'm ticking mine off along with you there. Yeah, it's true. If you haven't got the energy and the commitment and the solid and reliability, it's just all part of being in business, isn't it? And I really
Absolutely.
like,
and particularly in healthcare.
And in healthcare. And I particularly like what you said about being at who you be. You know, who you are at the movies is not who you are in the business. You put your business hat on, you put your coat on, and it's particularly for health professionals, you're actually putting on your work gear. You can become that person in your work gear. And it doesn't have to be the same person as you are out of your work gear. I mean, a lot of that will be consistent, won't it? But
yeah. And I think it's, I know that I could talk for ages.
Oh, we could. I know.
But one of the important things I think for you, if there's only you in the business, or if you have a team, pre-huddle. All great teams, all great sports people, they do a pre-huddle. You know, we talked about Roger Federer before, but in the change room, in the dressing room, he is there psyching himself up before he gets on the court. You know, I recently saw, what's it called? The Rocky Sons movie.
I'm not a Rocky. I'm sorry, I can't help
you. Anyway, you know, there was this vision of Creed. The movie was called Creed. There was a movie of Creed in the at the back, getting his gloves on, and he's pumping himself up, and he's doing his pretend boxing, and he's jumping up and down, and he's whacking his chest, and he's getting in state. He's getting solid, energized, and bold before he steps in the ring. There are so many practitioners that arrive at work in the state that they were at home, screaming at the kids, dealing with traffic, running out of petrol, whatever, and they bring that state into the practice. And it's not till 10 o'clock or 11 in the morning that they finally start shifting into the state of being in business and in practice. We need to do a pre-huddle before you open that door at practice or at your business. You got to turn it on.
Yeah.
You don't practice on the court. You don't, basketballers, you don't see them kind of warming up once the whistle's blown. You do that before you step into the business. And that's important for the key practitioner, the business owner, particularly if he's got a team. You don't want to arrive to work with that stuff. You want to arrive to work on, ready for game.
Ben, that is such an important point, because a number of the people who are listening to this who aren't health professionals or health practitioners actually work from home. So they're solopreneurs or solo business owners, and so they're in the kitchen, on the kitchen bench, and there's probably the fruit bowl, and there might be somebody's leftover breakfast bowl, or what are we doing when we're not actually transiting to another place of work, or even a mental state of saying, okay, so this is work time now, and I'm going to spend the next 2 hours on work, even though I'm sitting in this environment that is where I actually live and do what I do when I'm not at work. And so that's a real, when I talk to people about the discipline or getting themselves into the state, it's getting themselves into that state when you're actually not having that transition. How do you sit in a particular chair and that's your chair? How do you get yourself into that state when you're actually in your home as well? Because that's, Yeah, you have to be able to do that.
It's essential. Spend money to make money.
Yep.
Get your study organised.
Yep.
It should be your sacred place. If
Yep.
you work from home, your office should be a place that you step into. In fact, you wake up in the morning and you can't wait to get in there. Because you wake up in the morning and your office is clean, tidy, organised, everything filed. You don't want to be laying in bed and the alarm goes off at 5 o'clock and you think, oh, I've got to go into that brothel of a bloody study of mine. There's paperwork left from last night and there's stuff over there. There's bills I haven't paid. There's 750 emails. Oh, that needs to become your sacred space.
Yeah.
That when you wake up in the morning, you can't wait to get in there. Make it look good.
Well, and that's how people need to feel about their business, and if they're working in a job, that's how people need to feel about their job as well. Like, and if you're not, then it's the wrong place to be. So, anyway.
In business, you need to be creative. This needs to be a space that taps that creativity, that space that feels sacred. You know, you're surrounded by, motivational quotes. You've got, bookshelf right next to where you're working, full of books that cause stretch and growth. I'm talking to you from my study right now, and there's this huge bookshelf I'm looking at, and it's covered in motivational books, personal development books, business books. You need to be inspired in that space. So if you've got listeners that are sitting at the kitchen bench with the fruit bowl and the leftover dishes, stop it.
Thanks, Ben.
You're doing yourself and you're doing your clients, you're doing your business a huge disservice. You've got to turn up ready for game.
Yeah.
As you and I know in the KPI program, they talk about environment dictates performance.
Yeah.
The environment inside you, the chemical environment inside your body, the environment of your body, the physical state of your body, but also the environment around you. So
it sure
you've got to
does.
get that sorted.
It sure does. And that's where co-working spaces can be helpful if somebody doesn't have the physical space in their own living arrangement to do that. There's lots of ways you can solve that issue.
Yeah.
Ben, we could talk on forever, I reckon. But, people are listening, and if they've had to press pause and come back to us, that's perfectly fine. I know you and I are going to do a webinar at some stage. We'll let everybody know when that is and what that is and what the topic will be. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you so much for your time and, man, oh man, your energy. And, we're in different parts of Australia, but, I can just feel it coming through the Skype call. And I'm sure that the listeners can feel it wherever they are listening from. Is there anything else, Ben, before we go that you would like to say? Because our people that are listening, they're either in the early stages of business or they're thinking about starting a business. Is there anything that you'd like to leave them with as we say goodbye?
Be kind to yourself. Business is tough. But be kind to yourself. Set real and realistic expectations or intentions, even better. Happiness comes from less expectations and more intentions. Set your intentions for the day. Start every day with an intention of how you want it to turn out, and realise that sometimes life happens. So don't be too tough on yourself, but be an adult. Do the things that don't feel good, whether that's in your health. Going for a run sometimes doesn't feel, but go for the run because it's good for you. Do the things that don't feel good in your relationship but are going to be good for it. Take care of all those aspects of your life. Sometimes when we start a business, we can just be so focused on the business that we let some of the key and important things fall to the wayside. So take care of yourself, and most importantly, look after your mindset. I'll wrap with this. I was at Safeways the other day, and I was looking down at my basket. I was just been shopping to make some chicken soup. My son was at home with a cold, and I thought, I'll make some fresh chicken soup. So I had my basket full of vegetables and fresh chicken, etc. And I'm looking down at the basket, and as I look down the basket, I glance, and the guy in front of me has got his basket, and it's got 4 bottles of Coke in it. And I thought, I've got to take a snapshot of that. So I sneak my phone out and I take a picture, and it's got my basket full of green veggies, etc., and then his basket full of 4 Cokes. And I thought, isn't it amazing what ends up in people's baskets that enters their body. Not just chemical stuff, but mental stuff. Be careful what you put in your basket.
That's nice.
Be careful what you put in your basket that's going to enter your mind or enter your body. So I'll probably end with that.
That's
Guard
terrific.
your mind.
Guard
Put
your
some
mind.
good stuff in your basket.
Just leave that Coke on the shelf.
Leave the Coke on the shelf. Leave the trashy books on the shelf. Leave the trashy magazines on the shelf. Leave the crap TV on the shelf.
Yeah.
And put some good stuff in your basket.
Like our podcasts.
Like your podcast.
Yeah. And maybe yours one day too, Ben.
Well, I'm super excited. I've got to tell you, if your listeners are listening, they must tune in to that webinar.
Yes.
I'm already thinking about what it could be, and so excited to do that for you if we can tee that up.
We will. Thanks so much, Ben.
Cool. Thanks, Ingrid.
What a terrific interview. What did you find most useful from the guidance we've just received from Ben? And you know what? It just doesn't stop there. Ben has made a couple of free resources available for you. You can find the detail in the show notes or over on my blog, healthynumbers.com.au/blog. Search for Ben Carvosso. He's got a free discovery coaching call and also some free audio programs. You know what? We know you are keen to put time and effort and energy to take your dream of having your own business to reality. I've put together some business startup readiness assessment, and it's designed to help you find how ready you are to start creating, starting and growing your own business. Head over to healthynumbers.com.au/quiz and take that assessment. You can find full transcripts of all the podcasts over on my website and the blog. The links are in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening, and remember, if you have an idea, the next thing is to take action, because ideas are just that. Without action, they're just ideas. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.